What's your superpower? If we were on a Marvel movie, that would be the main question of the topic of the film. But sadly, that's not the case, because we are not superheroes, neither we are in a Marvel movies. So what does superpower has in common with today's topic? That's the dilemma. Yes, dilemma of many companies and businesses going on forward in today's society. On a fast-moving paced world with so many changes and a crisis right here, living as of today, many companies ask to themselves what's our superpower, or in other words, what's make us different. Brand value, uniqueness, salience, those are many things that brands don't know how to answer. That is where the marketing teams of those many companies has to break out their heads trying to find solutions. And in those solutions, and the process of searching, many dilemmas appears on. So today we will be covering 7 main marketing dilemmas that they are facing as of today on an evidence-based proof report made by Kantar that I will be trying to compile and translate as easy as possible for you. So sit back and fasten your seatbelt for this zigzagging journey towards epiphany. To whom it may concern, welcome to Commonsense, your safe haven. If anyone is listening, please keep in mind that we are together on this journey. This will always be your safe place to share your ideas, your thoughts, your comments, anything. So before we jump right back into the podcast, I have one simple question that I would like to ask you. What would you like to start with? As I said, we have 7 main topics ahead of us that I will be covering next to the report so we can actually understand many of those dilemmas. Sit down because this is going to take long and be super reflective on the current situation, especially being criticized with the way companies work and how us marketeers or in any department influence or at least acknowledge some part of it. Let's begin. Let's not delay it furthermore. So, point number 1 that we have in front of us is performance versus marketing, and which one or how do we actually make each one of them build a brand? What is the sweet spot for performance and marketing? For many decades, and even until today, the number 1 metric for measuring performance and knowing if any marketing investment was done well or not was return of investment, ROI. That is still the number 1 metric towards the truth that companies seek out by applying this metric. If it's invested correctly, it works. It gives us some return of investment. You have some data there to value parts of it. What's the problem? This is what I call vanity metrics. These are vanity because they only measure or try to measure one thing, interest. And it's not the interest of the company or the brand, it's the interest of the investors that try to achieve or seek the maximum return for their investment. So that's why they justify decisions based on that. As I said, this is a popular metric since 90s, 20s. More than 100 years, more than a century has passed and we still use it. It's super value even until today. But this constant seek of justifying our excuse for purchases is not quite there. Because there are other metrics, obviously, but what happened between 90s 20? Things were done different. And they were done in a way that decisions were not based on how much money would I get out of it on return, but based on the gut instinct. This is something we still have, but we are actually reprehensive in the decision making. Instead of saying, I'll take the decision based on my gut because this seems fair, we now use data to validate everything, which is fair, and that's how things should be, because that's minimizing the risk of failure towards any decision. But gut instinct should still be there somehow, and this is what actually develops in other metrics that are not vanities, as did ROI. If we keep going with the context, the ROI exploded with digital area, mainly because of what I was saying. Data is so much easier to be analyzed now that we can actually get those numbers easier, faster, and more secure than ever. Those metrics are 100% certain what we are seeing. This is another problem that we will be seeing in a minute. But now that ROI is so easy to calculate, is so valuable for everyone, and everyone in marketing is looking for that metric on any monthly meeting or annual report. Let's say, what can we do to actually justify what is as a vanity metric that is not as good as many of us think? And there are a couple of things. And you will see why, for me, it's kind of silly to measure ROI in marketing. First of all, the return of investment measures the long-term results. Okay, it is fully curated to see in how much time would I actually be able to return some part of my investment. That's the full definition of it. So it's based on distance. Distance is time. The longer tends to be the better. This fails to explode one simple thing, which is short-term results. And you will be thinking, well, if long-term things will work, why are you telling me short-term won't? Yeah, exactly, because for you going into the long term, you first need to go through the short term. And you need to be able to justify things on the short term, not for the investors, but just for yourself, for the team, and for the brand in the consumer's mind. So that's really important. Second of all, because we are using arithmetic, which is calculations, this doesn't value the brand as a whole concept. So the brand value gets completely annihilated by return of investment, mainly because it's mathematical and you cannot measure value because there are no measurements applied to that. Second point. And then, if you actually see the formula of return of investment, that's a division, not subtraction. So if we are actually dividing things with the actual cost of marketing, so marketing expenditure has been growing with this with the pace of years, the return of investment will keep growing, and this is infinite. So there is you divide by a higher number, things will get to the infinite. So the more we invest in marketing, the harder it will be to get a nice return of investment. This is a base of purely mathematical sum and subtract. So if you completely get hypnotized by return of investment, you will find hard to see beyond performance and gaining money out of it. You will fail to seek for the value of the company. You will fail to seek for something different, your superpower, mainly because you're focusing on money. This is something people need to focus on, but not the marketing department. You should talk on financial, but there should be some middle ground of concern that both departments can actually work together. So yes, return on investment is good on the long run, but to measure performance of the brand, how well marketing is building and settling down it into the consumer's mind, you need something else than just a vanity metric over. So now, if we neglect that side of metrics, so now that this is clear and out of the mind, what is the actual strategy? Your strategy, as everything in life, is to combine both things together. If you neglect return of investment, you will fail on the long term. That's obvious. But if you neglect something else, using something else, that metric, those vanity metrics, you will fail to achieve any success in the short term that will actually damage and harm your brand value over the long run as well. So it's a combination. And Kantar really made this easy for us to see, because those companies that neglect brand building completely, stop building a brand, working around it, decrease sales year after year, non-stop. But on the other hand, those who pair brand building and performance both together started growing year after year, doing a 50-50. And at the end, the performance was even higher, thanks to continuous brand building and value in the market. So the answer is clearly, we need to be multifaceted. It's combining long-term metrics, but being value and marketing driven to achieve something in the short term and provide the extra value that we are seeking for. So the next time you are on a meeting in your departments and you're fighting or stabilizing budgets, use the return of investment to get the higher amount of the cut possible, but justify it by applying and showing data or feelings or comments, anything that proves that on the short term, while those metrics was achieved, look for you manage to build something else out of your run and out of the company. So those directors, those executives will be able to see the value of marketing short terms and how well it works on the long term as well. Because building a brand, surprising or not, works both short and long term. And if we actually pair it perfectly with the financial strategies, they will bloom and actually rise in the success of the market. So that's super important. And talking about balance, which is I was saying, which is the solution that I'm providing. Stabilize it this way inside your department and when you're talking to your partners. The difference in metrics is that when you're talking long term, that's arithmetic. We use maths to calculate things that provide us benefits, results, clicks per user, impressions, etc. But when we are talking about the short term, about how well are we as of today or in a week or in a month, we need to talk about behavior. Because behavior is what will drive the consumers into clicking, into buying, into rebuying, into being loyal. That's still a thing. We need those both things, the behavior of a customer and the attitude, which is that long-term arithmetical sum, to actually influence sales in a higher percentage. So evaluate your effort in marketing not only on maths, but on behavior. Be omnichannel. Omnichannel is not only going out socially and applying to every social app, into traditional channels like TV or radio, going out on the street, having posters. No, omnichannel is also how you treat the customers and how you plan your strategy both short and long term. So next time, sit down and instead of ROI, ask for UMMO, the Unified Marketing Measurement and Optimization, which is to optimize the effectiveness across all channels. That's it. And with that, you will modernize your metrics, your department, and overall influence in a much better way for your company, brand, or anything you're trying to build. Because it's about modernizing not only the product, not only the way we talk to customers, but the way we calculate or we analyze the performance about it. Here in front of me, I have a case study that is provided by Counter. And this is the GoDaddy company. The GoDaddy company doubled on the brand and marketing, okay? But it was much later than the web hosting company shifted, okay? And they did it, they shipped this and they put the effort on telling people about the brand, about what they were about, because consumers fail to recognize their identity. And no matter how much they keep investing on the long run, consumers didn't know who they were. So maths will fail to predict things if the behavior wasn't yet established. So that's why they double on the investment on marketing. But they work on that investment on the short term. They double it short term wise to actually promote their identity. So consumers knew who they were. Similar case, it's Airbnb. During COVID-19, for the first time in years, they actually shifted focus to do a marketing campaign. And the performance on it was crucial because Obviously, they could not get any sales because everyone was locked in and you could not travel. But what they did was build a much powerful brand so that in the long run, it would pay off. People would know who Airbnb was during COVID. So once we all get back to safety, immediately we recognize our needs and pair it with Airbnb. And the result was a plus 20% increase in traffic. That proof that the short-term marketing efforts can actually produce same satisfied benefits and influence in a much bigger way long-term wise. With those two examples, we finish this performance versus brand creation, brand value with the highest 3 points, the highest 3 important points of a customer journey that we have been talking here for a long time, but they are super well summarized that you need to know. The first one is predispose more new customers. Okay, this will have a greater impact if more customers. This will have a greater impact, and let me tell you why. More predisposed customers will be just ready to cross the door. So once things happen, you improve the product, whatever variable is added, that predisposition will pay off. It's not like you are wasting money. You just have a line of people waiting for something to show up. A promise, a new feature, a promotion, whatever. Second point that has high impact on the customer journey is capturing more shoppers that were not predisposed. This is brand activation. Okay, we will talk about this later, but doing brand activations will, in a way, bring more sales. And lastly, the last stage is delivering a positive experience. And this is obvious. No matter what you do, no matter how well and how beautiful your campaigns are, nice words, nice designs, whatever, if the experience is not positive on the sales journey, on the after sales or anything, you are doomed to fail. That's the 3 points that they summarize here. The conclusion is clear between metrics and brand building. Do both, combine it, and work together. Don't ignore the financial guys, but you need to have them in mind for the long term. But also be smart and use the interest, the knowledge to make a huge role shift and get those benefits up and going. Talking about brand building, let's talk about these 3 last points that I mentioned. The customer journey and how a brand plays such an important role in their decisions, okay? Because if we try to explore this topic, this rhetorical question of what role does brand play in the consumer decision journey, is it really benefiting? Is that something that in today's super populated world where we have access to everything is kind of diluted? It triggers. We need to explore 2 realms, the mental and the physical, because a product needs to be both available mentally and physically in order to trigger the choice of a consumer. And there is a really nice effect called the double jeopardy effect. This effect will blow your mind. So let me tell you what the effects is about, mainly. The step 1 is to be physically available, okay? We need to be there before everything else. If a product is not available to our customers, they won't choose it. So the logic dictates that the reach matters and the penetrations enable more sales. So higher reach, higher penetration, higher sales. True. This will benefit big brands because they will have the power to be in every store, in every corner of a supermarket, in every retailing, in every e-commerce platform. So a big brand will increase its penetration based on those 2 metrics that I just said. No brainer. But what happens to small brands? Then, for any small brands, it means that you will have to run a marathon to be somewhat close to those big companies. Not true. And this is why it's mental and physically. Small brands need to be mentally available to the customers. So it means even though you don't see the product, you imagine it in your mind. This is kind of the analogy. If we are given a choice, we will pick the brand that comes to our mind, not the one that we're seeing, because we're thinking, not seeing. Thoughts come first. So activating the consumer's mind towards our brand is what we call mental availability. So it is more likely that a brand coming to our mind will easily be the one chose. And what we will do is we will search for it. It may be not available in every corner of the supermarket, but if we already search for it, maybe we just buy it anyways. That's the point of the double jeopardy effect. It's both mental and physical. You need to be there, you need to be somewhere, but you don't need to be everywhere if everyone thinks about you. Okay? So if we get into the customer decision journey loop, which is after we buy, we will buy again, we will see how it's all about three things: experience, equity, and activation. And the decisions are based on persuasion. That's it. Because when we are on system 1 and system 2 of the customer journey, which is the first two phases, our brain will just go on that thing that were a triumph, that were an exit, or that were kind of influenced in a positive way. So if we are able to buy or to build a momentum that is carried on into the sales and afterwards, the possibilities or the probability to repeat that same process is much higher. We all need to buy, or we all need to build an experience in our brands. Now, when it comes to phase 2, equity, this is where it gets harder. But things that really matters, and that's the point of right now, is the activation. The activation is the reach of our brand. So the more we are reachable by the consumer, the more activation in the brain they will have towards our company itself. So you have a clear understanding. It's quite confusing, but just so you understand, let's go those three steps once again and explain them with data. Okay. Experience triggers repeated sales. We talk about them because if they are positive, the loyalty first strategy reward kind of thing will come off and will pay off. So if we build a nice experience, it's like we're working on the loyalty of the consumer. So in other words, the less that goes out the bottom, the less consumers they left, the less amount of consumers we have to put back in. Okay. If we maximize the experience, we are more likely to have a 7% growth in rotations that leads to the same amount of sales growth. Number 2, the equity. We need to make good impressions to both buyers and not buyers. This is why it's easier for big brands because they can be everywhere, they have big campaigns, and everyone thinks of them positively. But it's making good impressions. Okay, buyers, not buyers, it doesn't matter. Keep the investment the same for those two categories, those who are buying or those who are not. Because this is what we talk about, predisposing new customers, activating them. Brands that work on their non-consumers, not buyers yet, will have a 27% growth in the long run. And lastly, third point, the activation. Triggering the current sales. Okay? The more we activize, which is, hey, I'm here, or be ourselves, these are the two possibilities. Hey, I'm here will be done by big brands. Being true to our identity is more likely to small brands. Those who are able to capture shoppers in the right moment, transmit their essence, and transfer that predisposition attitude towards sales are more likely to grow over 12% year on year. So if we once again look at the marketing funnel, we will see that these three stages, experience, and activations are linked to the advocacy and purchase decisions. But the equity treating both buyers and not buyers the same is linked to the awareness, to the considerations, and to the preference. That is why working on equity tends to bring higher growth numbers than the other two, mainly because it's linked to 3 cases overall. And talking about examples, let me tell you about the iPad one. iPad was launched on 2010. 45% of customers couldn't even name a competitors that same year. And this is brilliant. Apple did a great mammoth recognition endeavor, okay? They truly achieved what they needed, which is be recognized. And this was not simply because of massive campaigns, but rather because the brand knew how to communicate the value in that simple storytelling. It was simple, it was creative and human. Everyone linked their experiences to Apple that same year. So the iPad was the standard device. And even if you try to call any tablet device right now, you may even say iPad, even though it's not from Apple. Okay, last point for the future, for your company, how to grow the brand value. 3 main elements, same as we're always working with 3. If you are trying to influence any of those predispositions, the experience, the equity, and the activation, work on the following. Be salient. And by salient, we mean be available mentally everywhere. We need to be quick and easy to be remembered. Think and talk to friends, to colleagues, and try to show your brand without 13% of it, and make them, force them to recognize it and see how long does it take it. McDonald's just did something amazing by not showing the logo, but the products of the company. And people still recognize the company without even saying McDonald's or showing who they were. That is a brilliant case of salience. Different. This is hard to achieve. But the extent to which we achieve a brand difference towards others is the same degree of success. If we just copycat without any single touch of humanity to the brands, we will never be different. And that's simply it. And lastly, meaningful. And meaningful is a true belief. To believe, the emotional connections, and the reassuring to a customer that their needs will be satisfied by yourself. Work on those 3 key points to grow your brand, and you will see how things will improve further better. And now ahead, I have more examples here. Talking about examples. 3 examples. So I have more examples. 3 of them are TikTok, first one. The way they're really good is because they offer something that wasn't generally different, the short reel format. Puma, Adidas brother, literally. Strength, the relationship with customers. They made it more meaningful. And then even though they were not the number 1 sport apparel, a giant, they could not compete with Nike or Adidas. The customers really felt the connection toward the brands, and those who started with them stay for the long run. And I have a really interesting example, because there is a company that I didn't know before this, who is called iTians. It's on the culinary market, and it's Chinese. They built such a strong equity by having a superior relationship with consumers through, this is the key point, corporate responsibility. China has some problems towards the pollution, contamination, etc., etc. So their corporate responsibility towards those things, even employees, made it and demonstrate the compromise we heightened towards the society in general. And this positive gap was just enough of a signal that really pushed your company value overall. Because, and with this, I will end the second point. The people will forget what you said, but the people will never forgot how you made them feel. No matter what you did or what you said, it's all about feelings, what is left. And this should be the number one sentence we have when trying to build any brand value that tries to influence on the customer journey. Now, we talk about being different. What does being different brings to the table or to the equation? There's a question. Is this factor be or able to reduce customers' price sensitivity? Here we are going to start in a peculiar world. Price is a recurrent topic, crucial moment in any sales, but also something that is really being affected by the inflation as of today. So how well is that sensitivity influenced or affected by a different brand? Let's go through it, okay? Companies always ask on research, on market research, about the brand awareness, okay? How popular we are. It's something that, once again, falls into the vanity metrics category. Because on a piece of paper or in a screen, that someone said that we are a 7, a 6, and 8 in popularity towards the competitors leaves such a big room for interpretation that more often than ever, it will feel like nothing. It will feel like a blank answer because it's not telling us anything, okay? Unless we have words supporting the message. If someone says that we are an 8 on awareness, it's the same as they say nothing towards any logically company, okay? So instead of asking consumers about awareness, about competitors, about choosing attributes and comparing one to the other and seeing which one is the best, attributes that the companies choose themselves and they choose their and others' attributes. The thing that we should ask, or companies should ask to research, is how can I make my brand distinct to the customer? Ask them that. Do you think my brand is distinct? Yes or no? Maybe they say yes, maybe they say no, 50-50. But once they say, then ask them, how can I make my brand distinct? Make it open or suggest some different key questions, but leave room for interpretation. Once you have that, you have half of the step done in the correct direction. Because we always argue about being different. If we actually manage to pinpoint that difference in the consumer mind, it will allow us to actually move steps forward. And there is more key element in the difference. It's pivot. Pivoting is crucial for any company. This is something startups do a lot because they need to look for the right moment to pivot, to swap things around to boost sales. For established and long-running companies, this is a bit harder. But when talking about difference, pivoting your identity is crucial on certain moments, on campaigns, on those exact situations, okay? Because pivoting towards growth, it's also being different. Don't forget that. So now that we know, it's not about asking how aware people are about the company, but how distinct we can be. Let's carry on with distinctiveness. Distinctiveness, the 101 of branding, the first chapter I was trying to teach when building companies, because we all know that distinctiveness means that consumers must know or know already that we are who we are, and that there are certain assets who are truly useful in or for them to achieve their or satisfy their needs. And now the question is, of all the types of difference that there are, how do we find the sweet spot of not overspending but achieving an exposure? That's the real question of distinctiveness. Let's read the definition, okay? Differentiation is the intended brand image that you, as a marketer, hope to achieve in the mind of a consumer through positioning. This means, in other words, that distinctiveness is difference, and different is an opportunity. Every time we're different, we have one opportunity. How can we find those opportunities? We can do it through experiences, through emotions, through expectations, setting them, repetition, clarity with brands or with promises, whatever. But what really need to be acknowledged is the break-even point of difference. And it starts just by satisfying the needs over and above purely functional needs. First level is functional. Once it satisfies functional and is one step above, we are there. We are being different, okay? In a way. Now, it's all about making it worth more money. Once we did the break-even point of being different, because we satisfy the needs, just slightly, it's all about making it worth the money. That is where we need to work the most, okay? And yes, the evidence says that companies who really are able to transmit that difference are able to ask for more money, and therefore they end up being worth paying more for. But how can we do that? The first factor that you need to consider when talking about difference is time. Patagonia has been donated 1% of its sales to save our home planet over the last 35 plus years. And recently they actually made it they sell it fully to these causes, to these organizational causes for the better of the environment. Tony's chocolate only exists to eradicate illegal child labor and modern slavery on cocoa farms in West Africa. That was the only intention of the company. Nubank was founded to serve the unbanked and underbanked in Brazil. It has been developing products since 2013 to exclusively those segments. We see is those companies were able to be unique and different over the long run. That is something that is out there. There is a factor of time. We will hardly be able to be different from night to day. Because as any process is in life, it needs times to be perfection, to be built, and to be improved. And we find the sweet spot of distinctiveness. Okay? Let's go through a case study that has here. In 2020, the Oxford Set Business School started on a project. Okay? They wanted to see the difference between marketing activities, the different marketing activities made on abnormal financial returns. Therefore, an associate professor, Felipe Tomás, and Cantor studied over 872 brands and their expected financial results of 12 years. Once they have that, they added the brand equity from the Kantar database. With that enhanced model, they identified the brand factors that were common to the most contribution of these abnormal financial results. What we saw is that the biggest contributor towards any abnormal stock result was difference. The number one spot. There's many data models to construct the information. The CAPM, the three-factor from my friends, the Carhart, which is a four-factors model. All of them use financial metrics. Only when they cross that information with the added value, of equity in brands, it's where they were able to explain those abnormal elements, because it was not only about arithmetic and mathematics, but also about that behavioralistical aspect of companies in the equity. The financial metrics alone cannot be measured fully without that element of difference that is so complex in a way, because those are feelings, those are sentiments, and it's hard to. So it's all about the difference, and it is more than clear now with the example that normal results in the return on investment is thanks to difference, and we saw in the first point how the short-term strategy is as crucial as the long-term. So I want to finish off these points through more examples of differentiation, so we have more knowledge about it. Don Quijote. Don Quijote is a Japanese discount store, and they actually name them the discount store of your dreams because they sell a lot of items, And when it comes to differentiation, it's absurd because it's literally like a bazaar for European or even North American people. The store breaks the root of good retailers. There are no clear paths, and you need to be looking for items, searching through piles of them. But that's been their differentiation item, being a mess in terms of layout. Since there are no layout and they have 160 stores, which are the antithesis to any Japanese store, which are super measured and quadricular and super well organized, you are forced to get lost in the store. You are forced to constantly make or look for items because they are hard to find, and you want to find something that you know is there. So it's like a treasure hunt. And for Japanese, that slightly twist first was shocking, was fun and rewarding. And you came back because one day you didn't find it and you were like, I need to go again. So instead of holding the company, it boosted them. But the way they did it is through time, number one. Second, pivot. If they actually fell on the organizing system, they would pivot. But they managed to do an A/B testing, whatever you call it. They tried their concept that were super well established here, not so much in Japan. And that was the differentiation they needed. Anyone else would say that they were crazy because of trying that in Japan would mean completely bankruptcy. But it's all about that difference of placing wrong. So when you are trying to, as I said, put to the test that crazy idea, always say it with the same intention. This is towards a difference. Justify is toward difference, not just actually fully believe that everything is going to be worth for the difference. But once is that clear, there are no secrets towards good difference. The same that there are no secrets to good advertising. Because the creative execution is different from each person and it's different from each company. There's no guarantee that people will relate to your story the same that they did to others. There's no relation that if you go to any other elsewhere in the world with the same distribution than Don Quixote in Japan, you will actually find success. There are many elements, Distinctiveness and differentiation both are similar and different at the same time. And working to achieve that marketing effectiveness in both categories, combining those things is hard, take times. Also, once we have cleared these concepts and the idea of pivoting, executing, trying, and readapting, this dual engine is where we need to work our ass off to find success in the world. That's it. Okay? And if you want one last example, or a few more, I don't know how many I have, there are a Effie winning sneakers case study, okay? They make a campaign that reinforces the association with hunger and the satiation that creates difference for sneakers, okay? So, in other words, they wanted to combine or pair hunger and the satiation with sneakers. So every time you were hungry, you would eat sneaker and it would satiate you. That, if done on the usual method, under the usual methods, it would just be like any other food in the world. What they did was pair it with a code and a symbolic vocabulary to make that differentiation distinctive from the competitors. The sneakers halted their declining sales and refurbished their market share through this simple differentiation that was mainly like everyone else, but with the distinctiveness of wording and symbols. Johnny Walker, okay, did the same thing on their campaign. They stood out and even won many awards by using Keep Walking campaign, where the Keep Walking campaign, they put the quote of the famous writer Antonio Machado, which is Spanish, that says paths are made by walking. Okay, this says that this purely simple message says that, hey, it's still us, but I'm different now. I'm adapting, and I'm bringing a fresh take on life, on anything that we are trying to do. So that difference of walking a lot with their shoes made it durable was distinct by the recognition that the message brings. Those are two examples of how distinctiveness and difference work and interchange each other. Okay, you can take a differentiation elements and make it distinctive through anything of your brand value, and it will literally boost your company to the sky and beyond. Okay, it's all about combining and integrating well those two elements, and then the recall of your campaigns or your brand will grow immensely. Okay, and but going back to being distinct, being back to a trend. Try the McDonald's trend, or at least for me, I gave it that name, which is, can your brand or your company tell the same story, but without referencing the brands once? And if so, is it linked to your company? Does it really get understood who you are without even saying your name or showing your logo once? Because McDonald's can, Starbucks can, many companies, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, they could do it. Okay? But can you do it? That decisive moment of knowing if the campaign is yours or it could be from anyone else in the world is the moment where consumers will have no problem paying higher prices because they immediately know it was you. And this price sensitivity just drop to the floor. That is the moment. So do you think by working on the brand value, on the brand differentiation, you can affect consumers' price sensitivity? Yes. To what extent? To the one I said just right now. It needs to be exceptionally good. Consumers will not pay more for a company they are not even able to recognize under any circumstances. So when thinking about asking for more money, think about what you give to the customers and how well you are able to be recognized. Do it through your own identity, through a product, through a message, through whatever you feel like. But that key element, it's what will bring more out of anything. And we're going to finish this first part by talking about inflation and recession. We already talked about money. Now I need to talk about this briefly. We have more podcasts about talking about price and how inflation is as of today. It's something that is real, that is high, the highest that has been ever in history. And what follows, it's clear that consumers will spend less money, the unemployment will keep rising, and the inflation gradually will be subsided if things keep moving the same, which is what it looks like. My generations and the previous one, we've only seen inflation on books. We haven't had high levels of inflation in the economy in literally years. So everything we know is about literature, myself included. So I'm not able to provide you with deep instinct about inflation as yet, because all I know is based on history and what it has taught me. So now we're living it, and we need to survive through it. And the immediate horizon is that things will keep being the same, and that's okay. We can sort it out. Can we actually achieve growth with inflation going on? Yes, we can. How? It's different. We need to innovate a lot. That's clear. Innovation will bring growth, but we need to be more patient than ever for anything, mainly. Inflation will slow down things dramatically. So the success now is all for success now is all about profitability. We need to have a clear focus alone. The focus needs to be alone on profitability. We cannot split resources much more than that. If we want to end up surviving this and being on an enviable position of achieving high growth, super high growth, it's all about profitability first. Okay? With a few things here and there, okay? The fixing price is key. Pricing is unquestionably linked to profitability. There are a report by McKinsey 20 years ago that said that a 1% price shift would generate an 8% increase in sales, therefore an 8% increase in operating profits. 7 years later, this was reviewed and not only validated, but increased to a 10% profits from a 1% increase in price. We already talked about how well we are able to justify a price rising, not only by inflation. Okay, the justification is not just only inflation is going up, therefore we are leveling up prices, because that will work for high super multinational brands, but not for your mid-level brand, okay, or your small brand just growing today. The ability to raise prices will influence consumers to pay without losing the interest or without shifting to a competitors. Okay, and it's all about value. We already mentioned it. Okay, but the value is still important, even though we are trying to maximize profit. Value is still important. So please have this in mind. Don't succumb to the lure of price promotion. Avoid price promotions, not only now, I would say ever. Okay. Don't fall for the same old trick and same old mistake of getting price promotions so you can sell more. Because this is a sentence I like to use, is you will have food for today, bread for today, but you will be hungry tomorrow. You will eat today, but not tomorrow. Because when customers accepted their new reality, they would never pay the original price. And this is the way marketeers sabotage our own companies by telling the sales department, hey, let's make a campaign. If you buy 3, you pay 2, 50%, 5%, whatever price the competitors have, we cut it down. That is a solution for the short term, not for the long term. Promotions are often a magnet for existing customers. Half of them will bought the product without having a change in price. Okay. And secondly, competitors will do the same. It will be no competitive advantage whatsoever. So first of all, half of your consumers will already buy it, no matter what. The other half most likely will have swapped either way. And what you done it, competitors will done it. And they have the advantage now because they can play and sort it out the best way they can. So forget about price promotions. Okay? Don't do it. If you want data to actually validate that price elasticity, a decrease of 1% in price brought relatively low volume. Okay? It's about 0.8. The average was 1.37, minus 1.37 in results. A 5% decrease in price resulted in a 5% increase in volume. But a larger price of 15% increased volume by 22%. Okay, and therefore immediately you started a price war where you would drop 15, competitor 16, you 22, etc., etc., etc. So you will start having more volume, a profit margin will decrease dramatically, and we are looking for profitability, okay, not margins. Profitability will significantly drop down since the expenses will be the same, but the margin will be lower. And the war started, and your brand value immediately decreased. First day you decrease the price. Okay? This is the prisoner dilemma, where you are locked and your partner in another cells. If you confess everything and the others didn't, he goes to jail, you go for free. If both of you confesses, you lose 5 years. If not confesses, you lose 10. Okay? What would you do? People would literally confess because they have the certainty that the others would do the same. Look for the dilemma. It's really interesting. It's slightly what I said, but this is what happened on price wars. The moment you made a call of action of going down on price promotions or reducing price to what you think increased profitability, which is not the thing that will happen. Research has shown that this share gain smaller is way more beneficial to private label brands during the economic disruptions. They're able to recover faster than everyone else. But name brands don't recover at all, and they lose a huge market shares to the big companies. So evaluate your pricing position, evaluate the pricing power you have. I'm not the best at explaining this, but you have to be really good at business to actually navigate this by cutting down prices and getting victorious out of it, okay? You will need a lot of help from the financial departments. I can only give you the data to support it. For every 4 points of increase in the relative price, 1 point of increase in price is needed. Pricing power. Okay, so every time you want to increase a 4%, you need to have around a higher brand value than price power. And then consumers are willing to pay double for brands that have high pricing power compared with those lacking it. It's all about the brand. It's all about the difference. That's why it's so important. Points 1, 2, and 3. I have 3 examples of high pricing power, just so you understand, and so I have more context. Loxonin S. This is a painkiller, over-the-counter painkiller in Japan. This category, it has 3 key players, okay, but only one can demand a high pricing power, which is Loxonin. And the reason why is because the perception of performance of that company and the personality associated with the experts and the shades that they have reinforce the sense of the difference and the ability to justify higher price. They're using expertise, wisdom, and years of experience to justify pricing power. Method, a detergent brand in the USA. In 2016, this was a really small brand, but they have a strong future ahead of us. Once people start using it, they understood the benefits. They have so many added value of benefits to the cleaning device, the cleaning systems of clothing, and etc., that the higher price point was considered reasonable. This is instead of expertise, qualities, or characteristic of a product. Second point of how to increase the pricing power. Third point, Kaufland. This is a hypermarket in Germany. It's a bargain store, okay? But the price are above those in Aldi or Lidl. So it's a bargain store, slightly higher priced than Aldi and Lidl. But their advantage is on the location. They have really good location stores and a unique shopping experience. So the range of the goods and the offer, experience, and the locations are able to justify a higher price compared to the category. You've seen three cases based on locations, based on expertise, and based on characteristic of a product. Anything could be what you need to justify your price. But to justify price and to have a high price sensitivity, you need to be able to have done it before your prices went up. If you raise your prices and then try to justify it, on that straight moment, you literally lost the price war to any of the competitors in the market. And with this, I'm ending the price category. This is the hardest one so far, but you've seen some examples and some data. I hope it's clear enough. If not, as always, you can actually write me in the comments or anywhere, or send me, or go in my webpage, our csjourney.com, so we can actually get in contact and discuss any of these a much comprehensive topic. Even come here and talk about it, whatever you need. You have a question of doubts for your brand, that's the case, please, those are more than welcome. And now we are gonna leave it here for the first part of the marketing dilemmas. It's been going long and super in detail. We have 3 more points to go through: brand value and how to prove it by marketing. We have precision and how marketers can stand up to that. And we have loyalty. Is loyalty still a thing in 2023? Plus our final conclusion and recap of everything. Next week, we will cover those same 3 topics, the same way we've done today, with the same case of examples and studies. The super comprehensive review will also come on a summary made by myself as a downloadable in the future. So stay tuned for that. If you have any questions or any doubts, as always, let me down in the description. And don't forget to subscribe or follow the podcast if you haven't yet. This has been. I'll see you here next week to carry on the topic that we started today. Until then, see you.